Welcome to webinar 104, Nerves of the Spine. And this is the season we're talking about the warmth of love. And of course, this is the season where we begin with all the warm weather because it's cold outside. I should say it begins with cold weather outside with all the warm inside. That's what I should have said. So what we're talking about are the spinal nerves. And a lot of times people don't go deep into the spinal nerves when they talk about the nerves. So spinal nerves are mixed nerves, which means that they carry motor, sensory, and autonomic signals between the spine, the spinal cord, and the brain, right? Okay. Within the human body, there are 31 pairs of these, and they're both on both sides of the vertebrae. And they consist of 8 thoracic, no, I got that wrong, 8 cervical, 12 thoracic, 5 lumbar, 5 sacral, and 1 coccygeal. And each pair connects with the spinal cord at that specific point of the body. So I do have the slides, and this is what the cord looks like when you take a picture of it looking at it. And you all know to ask for, when you're working with the spinal cord, and even with the brain and with the body, you can ask for white matter and gray matter, because it's all throughout our body and it does carry emotions. And the gray matter, it's in our brain, it's throughout our body, and they just call it gray matter and they call it white matter. Why they call it that, I really don't know. But this is just the pictures of the spine, and these will be here. And let me know if you can't get these off of here, and I'll make it for you can have them. That way you can, you know, when you're going in to do this. Because if you have one of any of these things, an artery that's disconnected from a root or anything like that, and you don't have these pictures, then you don't know that's disconnected in there. So with this, the nerves of the cervical spine, we all know, go to the upper chest and the arms, and the nerves in the thoracic go to the abdomen and the chest, and then the nerves of the lumbar go to your spine into your legs. So the brain stem, and I might have put that in here wrong. Yeah, it might not let me do that. Oh, it's not going to let me do that. I did put it in wrong. Okay, I'm sorry. The brainstem, as we know, is all the way up here, right? And it is already housed in the brain with the spinal cord, and it controls the hunger, the thirst, and some of the most basic body functions, like our temperature, our blood pressure, our breathing. And the brain itself, as we know, is protected by all of our bones in our head and the coverings of that. And then the 3 thin membranes that are in there that are called the meninges. And let me come back here. These are what I was talking about, that the meninges that they laid out. Now, there are some diseases that run with the nerves of the spine. Let me just go back up here. The first one, and I just did 5 of them. We all know, let me just stop here. We'll come back up to this. We all know about Parkinson's, right? And we've all heard of Parkinson's. And that's a disorder of the central nervous system that affects movement. And that means they have gated movement. Do you know what gated movement means? They kind of bend over a little bit and they shuffle their feet. They don't pick them up all the way. They kind of slide them. That's a gated talk. And they also have tremors with Parkinson's, and the tremors usually start in their hands. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it'll just be little, and then you'll see them getting bigger and bigger, and then they will also go to other areas of the body. Now they do have, remember that the nerve cells just don't damage that, they damage the brain and the dopamine levels in the brain. Now they do have drugs now because to bring this back, but we can actually check dopamine levels, and there are herbs that can be like dopamine and can actually work for dopamine. Thank you so much, Kayla, for looking the herbs up. The ginkgo biloba. Paulo, have you heard of ginkgo biloba before? It is a very powerful, very awesome herb for the brain. It helps many other things, but it is a great brain herb. And it helps with memory. It helps with so many things. It's a powerful antioxidant. It fights inflammation. And there's so many herbs out there that does fight inflammation. Make sure you muscle test of which herb is best, the highest for their good. And it also improves circulation, heart health, reduces symptoms of the psychiatry part of the dementia. Because remember, when they are starting to lose and go further and further, they will get more confused. They will see sights that aren't there. They will, all kinds of things get distorted for them when they get that far. But we can work with Parkinson's, and we can bring them back to a certain point. We can't bring them back all the way. But I have worked with several Parkinson's, and it's helped them immensely. And it's also key of what they eat. Very high vibrational food, and keeping them busy, keeping them exercising, anything, walking, any type of exercising, even keeping so their mind is not drifting so much. With dementia and even the other ones, I will talk about always get out the picture books for them to look at, and that will help them also. Now there's also multiple sclerosis, and I know y'all have heard of that too. And it's a disease in which the immune system actually eats away at that protective layer of the nerves. It actually, if you've ever seen it underneath the microscope, when it literally looks like there's acid been poured on the skin, and it's just a hole. It's kind of gross looking. It results in nerve damage, which disrupts the communications, of course, between the brain and the body. So we can go in and work on that. And they also, when they have MS, they can also have double vision. That's a common sign. And sometimes with certain ages, they don't like to tell you that they're having double vision. Because they, that added feature, especially for men, to say that they're doing this or that they're seeing things. And also with MS, the resulting nerve damage, it disrupts so much communication between the brain and the body that they can have pain throughout their body. Beside the double vision, they swell. And they get a very strange odor because their organs are starting to shut down. They get completely fatigued. They are just exhausted. And their coordination will also be off with MS. But for some of these, you can revert it back, and you can normalize them if you catch it at the right level. At some, when they reach that level, you can't get them back to that level. You can do good, but you can't get them completely back. And for MS, ginger, chamomile, and dandelion root. Dandelion root these are really good herbs. Ginger I utilize every day. Taking these herbs manages MS symptoms by reducing the inflammation and the strengthening of the immune system. You can get, with so many of these diseases of the spine and of the nerves, it also breaks down. You've got to remember that the immune system is attached to everything, right? And so it's going to break down everything. So watch the immune system. Check that their immune system and their lymphatic system is always functioning at 100%. Now, ALS. I have only worked on one person with ALS, and I've only known one person. the nervous system itself weakens the physical part of the body. And it's very hard. This is a very hard disease for the person that has the disease and for the family that is with this disease. As the nerve cells break down, which reduce all the functionality of all the muscles, the cause is unknown for ALS so far. I couldn't find anything. But the physical therapy is so very important. And you're going to hear me say that through all of the spine ones, because you've got to keep that tight and taut, or it's just going to get more elastic. It's going to get more loose. And then what's going to happen? It's going to fall out even more easier. Let's see. Did you have something for ALS? Yes. ALS are aimed at nourishing the kidneys to benefit the marrow, the spinal cord, and at vitalizing blood to soften the sclerosis and to invigorate the circulation to the affected muscles. That's interesting. I wonder if that would work on all kinds of sclerosis. Now, the next one is Alzheimer's, and we all know that Alzheimer's is also one that's very hard, the progressive disease that destroys the memory and other important mental functions. And you can also tell their eyes, the rims of their eyes get really red, and their eyes set back a little bit. Their skin even gets, on some of them, gets a little yellow. Their ankles will swell. There's so many telltale signs on Alzheimer's. Their brain cell connections and the cells themselves degenerate over time. They eventually die off, and it destroys all of the memory and any other important part of the mental functions. Again, exercise is important. It is important to, you know, keep them talking, keep them busy, keep them active. It's very hard. Having them be alone is very hard. Like David's dad lives alone, and it's very hard to have him live alone and not know if he's okay or not. So people do need help. The other one I wrote down is Huntington's disease. Have y'all heard of Huntington's disease?
I didn't until today.
You didn't until today. Okay. It's an inherited condition in which the nerve cells actually break down the brain over time. And it typically starts in a person's 30 to 40s. And the basal ganglia region of the brain is what's affected. And that's back up under here. And I didn't do a lot of searching on it because I did know somebody with this, and it was just really awful to watch. And ginkgo biloba also helps with this. Now, with the nerves themselves, we all know that the sciatica nerve is the longest nerve we have in our body. We also know it gets pinched really easy and can be very, very painful. So it is the longest of the body. It starts in your lower back, and it runs clear up through your hips, your buttocks, down through your legs, both sides, bone spurs, and even spinal cord stenosis, narrowing of the bones. Can also put pressure on the sciatica in the lower part of the nerve. So this can happen as we get older. So if you notice people that kind of walk with, get up in their walk and don't walk, you know, straight, that is hard on those hips, and it's hard on that sciatica nerve because that's pinching in there. And if you've ever had that sciatica nerve be pinched and have pain, it's something you don't forget. It's awful. As everybody says, it is, isn't it? I didn't think I'd ever get rid of it. I had it for almost 4 months. How long do you have yours?
Not long, because I fixed it, and I do the tennis ball trick too. On when you lay on the tennis ball and you
Nobody
like on
told
the ground.
me about the tennis ball trick. Tell me about the tennis ball trick.
Well, you just put it well, you just get ready to lay on the ground and you place it where your sciatic is or where you're having pain. And I have it on Pinterest saved. And then you just lay there and let it do its thing. And that really helped me. But, it shot right down into my leg to the point,
I bet.
like, it felt like I couldn't move my leg even. Yeah, I don't
Oh,
like
I
that.
bet. Oh, I bet. I know it's painful. And it happens so easy, sciatica does. So I always try to keep my legs busy. I try to walk every other day and try to keep myself up. That's why y'all are young. Make sure you take good care of your bodies, because when you get older like I am, it's really hard to get it back. It's very hard. Okay, so the other thing I wanted, the spinal cord extends from the forearm magnum. Have you ever heard of the forearm magnum before? Okay, so the forearm magnum itself is a big, large, to me in the picture, it looked huge. It can't be that big, in your occipital. Okay, and it's in the occipital bone of the humans and some of the other animals, and it's where where the medulla to the first level and the second lumbar of the vertebrae is. So it would come to here, and then it would come to, you can feel the axis here, and then you can feel the second one right below it, and that's where it ends. And if you move that, you can feel that axis move. So it's a very vital link between the brain and the body from the brain. And the spinal cord itself is 40 to 50 centimeters long and is 1 centimeter to 1.5 centimeter in diameter. I thought that was very interesting. And that's why they said, you know how we can't always get to the acupuncturist. So what Donna Eden said in her book was to take these two fingers like this and then lay this one on top and push it wherever that ball is. Like you can do it in the chest, and you can feel that you have soreness here on your chest, and then go to the opposite side of the chest and push on those spots simultaneously, and it will bring relaxation through that chest cavity. And it does work. It does make the spots really sore if you push too hard and bruise, but it really works. And you can do it to both sides of your chest. And you can also, if you're laying down on your stomach, you can have someone take right here on their thumbs, and on both sides of your spine, start right up here at the back of the neck, and don't push hard because you don't want to do damage, but go slow, and you'll feel the little bumps, and go all the way down to where those two notches are above your hips, or right below your hips. And on your kidneys, for your kidneys, you can do the same thing and run it up the bone in the front of your knee, in front of your leg, your shin bone. That's what those kidney lines are. If you've got pain in there, rub those out of there. Those are kidney spots in there. Sorry, I'll go on about all kinds of things. Not what we're supposed to be talking about. Sorry. Let's see where we are. Okay, the spinal cord, we all know, is protected by the bones, the discs, the ligaments, and the muscles. But when you go into work on that spinal cord and you know exactly where they tell you that pain is, make sure you ask if it's disconnected, if any part of it's disconnected, because so many times it's disconnected from another nerve, or it's disconnected from a vein or an artery. Now, the muscles and ligaments can get disconnected also, but what I found is that those get disconnected that way. And it's usually from somebody just having a small bump. It doesn't have to be much for them to get hurt for that to be injured. Okay, so these spinals, the spinal cord is made up of 33 bones, which we call the vertebrae. And last time we spoke, I talked to you about how when the vertebrae are sat right, they look like little puppy dogs, which are really cool. And I still couldn't find that picture. The spinal cord passes through the hole in the center of the spinal cord of each vertebrae. Now, if you've ever seen, have you ever seen a disc itself without being attached to a body, just a disc? It is really fascinating how, and it's very brittle. it is stated that there's no cause or no symptoms. You know how people get herniated discs all the time and they say that there's pain? Dr. Sarnos and Dr. Steve Lozanicic say that there's not really pain with herniated discs. The pain is from where it pushes on the other muscle. It's not from the disc itself, it's from where it pushes. And so it's not actually that disc pain. It can irritate the nearby nerves also, and it can even cause numbness. It can cause weakness. And it can also cause weakness and numbness in your arms too. Remember that. A lot of people don't think that. They think it can just happen in their back or in their legs, but it can also happen to your arms. And each spinal nerve that is formed is in a combination of nerve fibers. And if you've ever seen nerve fibers, if you've ever laid them out and cut them open, if you've ever seen like a spool of, say, electrical wire, and they've got all the little tiny wires on the inside, or like if you cut up an asparagus, you see all those little in there, that's what those look like. And they're very pliable, and they're really neat to look at. Okay, so each one is a rubbery in between. We know that. Okay, each spinal nerve is formed by the condition of the nerve fibers and the dorsal and ventral roots of the spinal cord. The dorsal roots carry afferent. Have you ever heard of that? Afferent? Okay, afferent, they receive the information, and efferent, when I was doing this, I was going, this doesn't seem right, but the efferent motor skills carry the signals away. So the efferent bring it to, and the afferent, did I just get that back? Did I just get that backwards? I did, didn't I? Let me find out where. I just got it backwards. Okay, the efferent carry him away, and the afferent carry him to. Okay. So what they do is they carry the incoming and the outgoing messages to the brain from the spine. So that's, I'm sorry, I didn't explain that. The spinal cord, we all know, is very long, and it's formed of all these combination of nerve fibers on the dorsal and the ventral. But at times, if you notice, people don't get the ventricle side hurt, the dorsal side always gets hurt. Do you notice that? Maybe not all the time, depending on what occurred, but it's usually the dorsal side that gets hurt. I may be wrong in that. The spinal cord is very fragile, as we all know, because we've heard of accidents that have happened and the damages that it happens. But the spinal cord can be reprogrammed, and most people don't realize that. It can be regenerated, which is amazing because not everything can be. With chemical and genetic treatments, a new pair of discoveries, they are just, I wish they would go this busy on everything else that they're doing research on. And I know this is important too, but it's amazing that they're finding all these new messages that they can, and new ways that they can, fix these damaged nerves. The findings of these suggest that future therapies that I read about for spine damage, that people will no longer suffer, which would be amazing. They didn't give a year. They just said in the future. They didn't give a year of when that would be happening. They just said it's going to be happening, and they're going to come up with more ways for brain trauma also. Damaged nerves, the brain and the spinal cord are your body's central nervous system. But we know there's also the peripheral, the enteric, and all those, and they can be blocked. We all know that. The spinal nerves below the injury. Okay, so say you have an injury in the middle of your back. Okay, so the spinal nerves that are below that injury get the signals that the brain is sending it, but what's above it doesn't get the signals anymore. So what we can work on is getting the signals to that and dissipating that knot or that break, whatever you want to call that in your own verbiage, of what that damage has done, and see if we, because we can do anything through power of intention, and see if we can get that through and get that relaying. That's how I got that young lady up out of her chair and she's walking, because I kept reconnecting things and couldn't believe all that was unconnected. But it can happen, and that's amazing. So to get these spinal tracts, to get the reflex movements happening, they've got to start somewhere. So they've got to start with weights somewhere. They've got to start with movement somewhere. But you know, when people get hurt, when they get this big of hurt to where they're in a wheelchair, they give up. They go through grief. There's all those stages, and there's so much involved in that they don't want to move forward. They're stuck. So we have to get through this before we can get through the rest. And that sometimes can be difficult in itself. But we know that the damage is, when it's damaged, the messages cannot get through. So the spinal nerves below the injury, like I said, get the signals, and the ones that are above do not. So the symptoms of a spinal cord injury, and some people are not aware of these, and sometimes you're not aware of them until several days later, and that's where trouble can occur. Problems walking, any trouble walking. I mean, if you're just off a little bit, you know how you walk and sometimes you stumble a little bit. If you notice that you're off just a little bit more, there's something going on. Loss of control of your bowel or bladder. Feelings of numbness and tingling in your extremities, not being able to move your arms and your legs, unconsciousness, of course, massive headaches, and it'll be centered at one spot, always at one spot. There will be pain, there will be pressure, and there will be stiffness. And it's not a stiffness that you would feel. You know how you wake up sometimes and you're really stiff from sleeping so hard? And that stiffness kind of dissipates when you move. The stiffness does not dissipate. Okay. And also signs of shock. And sometimes that can be hard to even understand that. So the spinal cord, as we all know, is what people call the highway of communication for the brain to send messages to all parts of our body, to instruct it to move and react as it's supposed to. It also carries all the sensory information back and forth to the brain, and all these functions of the spinal cord transmit all those nerve impulses for movement, for sensation, for pressure, for temperature, for pain, for everything, which we already knew. Now, besides just a loss of a sensation and motor control when you have an injury to the spine, it can also lead to other changes within your body when you have a spinal cord injury. Have you guys ever seen anybody that's been in a wheelchair that's in a wheelchair from a spinal cord injury? It's a really tough thing to watch what they go through. The spinal cord itself, in my opinion, when it sits like that and they don't get a move, they don't get a stretch, they don't feel anything in there, because there's nothing, you know, all those movements and all that is shut off. So to exercise, again, go to a physical therapist, whatever they can do. Besides that loss of sensation, there's so many things that start going wrong when your body can't move. I mean, your muscles atrophy, of course, and then other things start happening as well. The various parts that it controls the body, and it plays an important role in the bladder. And when the bladder shuts down, other things are going to start shutting down as well. The spinal cord forms such a superior link between the brain and the rest of the body. It's just amazing that together the brain controls the functions, including all the movement and our behavior. So we have to think about just how little these spaces are and the vast things that they actually do. The brain stem connects the brain, the spinal cord. It controls the hunger and the thirst, of course, and we know that. But some of the most basic body functions, like our temperature, just basic things that you don't even stop to think about, our blood pressure, our breathing. Do you ever stop to think about, are you breathing? Unless you're doing a meditation, do you ever stop and pay attention if you're breathing? You know, if you're taking deep breaths, if you're doing all that? Whew, let me tell you, I didn't ever realize it before, but you really need to. The brain is also protected by the bones, by those three membranes. So remember to always exercise regularly. Even if it's just 3 days a week, it is very important. Any type of movement, any type. That way your spine and the nerves stay elastic and can stay in the shape that they need to stay in. Don't smoke and use tobacco because that can cause harm. Get plenty of rest. Take care of your health as a whole. When we don't take care of ourselves as a whole, other parts of our body start to go down, like I just did with my lungs, as we just found out, and then everything else starts going. Now, I ignored that I had grief, and now I'm suffering with this. So pay attention when your body sends you those little bitty signals and you think, there's nothing there. Don't go, It could very well be something that you need to pay attention to. Because there are really, sometimes they're just really tiny signals. And we really don't pay attention to those really tiny signals at times. And make sure that we eat a balanced diet. Make sure you get all those lovely colors in there and drink plenty of water and other fluids. And I always talk about drinking lemon in your water. But I just read an article the other day about lemon is not good to be drinking in your water. But I've always read where it's good to have lemon in your water to help your liver. Have y'all ever read anything where it's not? See, I haven't either. So I'm going to do some research on that. So I thought that was kind of odd. I didn't know about that. So do you have any questions? I know there's a lot there. And if you want, I can put these notes into, I can't even think tonight, into the little thing on the side. Would that help? Okay, because I don't know if I went over everything. It's been kind of a rough day. So if you have any questions, let me know. And if not, then we will, what time we sitting at? I don't even know. And we'll have a soft little prayer. Go ahead, Paulo.
I have one question now that we are seeing the spinal nerves.
Mm-hmm.
When someone is having a lower back pain, but then you find that the kidney is happy, the uterus is happy. You have done all the connections, and it seems that is nothing else, but the person is still with that lower back pain. So it will be good to ask for any kind of disconnection here in the nerve pain.
Let me finish showing you this. I'm sorry, I blew that one, Paulo. Let me see, here we go. Yes, most definitely. up. Okay, this one we went through. And you can see the spinal nerves and that. When people get, and they still have, this is the gray matter one. Let me go here. When you go through Paulo and, oh, what did I just do? Okay, I didn't know I did that. Check when they have pain down here in the lower part. Check for the pelvis region, the ischium, the pubis, and see if those sacrum nerves down here at the bottom and the coccyx and the rectum and the anus are all aligned and happy, because sometimes they are not. Oops, let me flip that. See if this will give us a posterior. See, and you can ask all the branches. I don't know if I have that one on there. Ah, it doesn't look like I have that one on there. And Paula, there's actually spines, or spines, I'm sorry. There are nerves clear down here at the bottom. And these spinal nerves can cause quite a bit of pain if they're not connected to the right spot, or if they are disconnected in any way. I'll make sure that you guys can see that. But if you go through there and just ask all the questions within those little things, you will be surprised at what's not connected. Because when I have somebody, when the uterus is happy, their kidneys are happy, the ureters are happy, the urethra is happy, the bladder's happy, okay, where do you go? Let's go into that spine and let's get in there deep and let's see what's in there. And so you can go through all the vertebrae, go through also through the ligaments, through the tendons, and through the muscles. And there's certain ones. And then I always leave the nerves till the very last. And I don't know why I do it that way, but I always do, because I always find the disconnections in the nerves. And sometimes they're not disconnected from the one across from them. They're disconnected from one up here, or they're even disconnected from the brain itself, or they're disconnected from the waist, from where it's into that middle hub where they go down through, in through to the legs, and they're disconnected there. Now they can also have despair anchors, which I thought was rather strange the first time I saw one on there. But the trapped emotions, and make sure you check for body walls, unconscious, whatever. I cannot believe how many body walls I find, and I never used to ask for it until I saw that the webinar with Beth Foley, because I never asked for half the things until I saw all the stuff that she had. And it's amazing of what's down through there. And you can also ask, Paulo, if you can't find what's wrong, ask if it's something, and this is what something Chris taught us, if it's something mental, if it's something physical, is it something spiritual? Oh, then there's mental, spiritual, physical. And the other one, my head just went. What's the fourth one? Mental, spiritual, physical, and emotional.
Emotional.
Jeez. And then make sure that all four of them are working together as one. Because sometimes they are not, and sometimes there can be 5 and 6 different reasons that they're not working as one. Does that make sense? Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. Does that help, hon?
Yes, thank you so much.
Oh, you're so very welcome. Anytime. No problem. Okay. If we don't have any other questions, I know I went through that fast, and I'm kind of a little off, and I'm sorry that I'm a little off. Let's go ahead and let's just say a prayer, if we would, please. Heavenly Father, we thank you and we bless you for Kayla and for Paulo. We bless you and we thank you for the beautiful 5 archangels that were here with us tonight. We thank you for your love and your kindness. We thank you for helping us to teach and for giving us these bodies to teach and the modalities to teach from. We thank you for giving us this gift. And we thank you for your love and your kindness. and for the friendships that we have made. We bless you and we bless each one of you. In God's name, amen. Thank you, ladies.